to start with, I was doing it because I enjoyed it. I knew I wanted to make a difference, but it was very much I had to work on my mindset and my confidence level. Yeah, what we're doing is right. What I'm doing is right. What I've created is right. It's working and it's being acknowledged. Ask the people that that have the additional barriers what they can do to support them to remove those barriers. Because likely is they'll know if we need to make the time, then we find a way to do so. You tell me I can't, just watch me, and I absolutely will, and I will move heaven and earth. Probably because I'm stubborn, but I'll move heaven and earth to prove a point, and that actually I can do that. I think if we all work together to help each other, to support each other, to remove the barriers that people face, then literally, to quote a catchphrase, the world is their oyster.
Hey, welcome to the Leaders Podcast with me, Laura MacDonald, the leadership coach and mentor. Come with me as I explore the elements of leadership that give leaders like you the power and confidence to make the impact you know you can. I'll be sharing my own experiences, top tips and insights, and talking to some very special guests to share their thoughts and leadership experiences on mindset, influence, change and growth. So let's get right to it. My guest today is the lovely Zoe Plumley, disability advocate, trainer and coach, keynote speaker, and the owner of L&L Coaching and Virtual Assistant Services. Welcome to the Leaders Podcast, Zoe.
Thank you for having me.
That's all right, no problem. It was interesting talking to you when we first met, and I feel like we almost did the podcast on that call. So
You could have just recorded it. Yes, absolutely.
We absolutely could have. So I thought, stop here. Before we start, I ask all my guests a question because it's so important to serve yourself so you can serve others better, as a leader especially. But my guests all have different things in their lives and different ways of serving themselves, and it's always great to share these things. So my question is, what have you done to serve yourself in the last 24 hours?
Well, that's a really tricky one because, as I said, my little one's poorly. So if we elongate the 24 hours slightly, I would say I always try and make time for myself, even if it's just 5 minutes, just to sit down. I'd say outside. Again, I live in Wales, so generically that's not really possible, but just somewhere quiet where you can just sort of breathe, reflect, enjoy the peace. I have a list. It was someone that coaches me made me do a really long list as to 10 reasons why people should trust you, therefore work with you. And part of what she's made me do is actually start reading that every day, multiple times a day, because like everyone, or the majority of people, I suffer from imposter syndrome. So therefore that reinforces my values, my beliefs, this is why I do what I do. So yeah, that's really important to me. It's just to have that 5 minutes of just calm and peace, just to be able to read, process and just breathe. Breathing is always really good, especially when you're starting your day and you don't quite know how your day is going to finish off.
Yeah, the sitting outside thing. I know you said you live in Wales. I don't think it's much better here in England. So
No, probably not.
As I said, you are all about supporting and advocating for disability, and you do that in a number of ways. But how did you get here? Like, what led you down this path?
Two ways, two reasons technically. So my background is in nursing. So I've always worked predominantly in healthcare. So I've always had that wanting to help people, wanting to, make people's lives better, wanting to support people. That's always been my goal, is to make a difference to people. And that's never changed. What has changed is my own personal circumstances in regards to my health. So when I was 15, I had a really serious accident and I actually temporarily paralyzed myself. So I was in a wheelchair for a couple of years. I didn't walk unaided until I was 18. So I've always had in and out of hospitals. I have brittle asthma. I have multiple heart conditions. I have rheumatoid arthritis. And it's very much a case of I could no longer continue to nurse because of my health. That was taken away from me. And all of my life I've been told you can't do this because of, and it would be a health reason. And that's absolutely not how I roll. It's a case of, okay, you tell me I can't, just watch me. I'm going to show you that I can. It may be a case I have to go a wonky route, and that's fine, but I will get there. May not jump out of an aeroplane. That may not be recommended, but actually I wouldn't want to do that anyway. So that's absolutely fine. But yeah, it was a case of, especially when I had the RA diagnosis, it was there it is, there you go, crack on. I'm like, okay, what do I do? There is no support. I have to shut down a business at that point. I had a print shop business because I couldn't work the presses. I had a 3-month-old baby that I couldn't change her nappy because I couldn't use my thumbs. If you ever tried changing a nappy without using your thumbs, it is near on impossible. Anyone has any tips, feel free to send them my way. But it was a case of, I just want to bridge that gap so that people feel supported. They know there are people out there that actually care, that want to help, that want you to still be able to achieve your goals, and that will support you every single step of the way. So yeah, I want to be that missing bridge essentially, for people. And that's what set me on this goal. So my nursing background, my personal lived experience, and then actually my passion to help and actually bridge that gap so that people know they can still achieve whatever they want to, and there is support there.
And that's a really important mission, I think, to just make a difference in people's lives and do it towards something that you personally have experience of.
Yeah.
But also that you're super passionate about. The first time we met, it was really obvious, like this was absolutely what you were intending to do with your life.
Oh,
this is
completely.
the difference I want to make. And it's great that you found that space to be able to set up the business you've got now, to be able to support the kinds of business owners that you do, to be able to do the kind of training and speaking and all the rest of it that you do all around disability awareness, and inclusion, because this is a really important topic for a multitude of reasons, and we'll go into a lot of those today. But what you need, especially with subjects like this, is people who have experienced it, who do understand what it's like to be on both sides of the coin, who want to make a change for the better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm very, very lucky. A lot of people don't get to say that they work in their passion, and that's exactly what I do. I get up every day, and work isn't work. Yes, there are some amazing days and some really not amazing days, but that's business. But from an actual what I do point of view, I am incredibly lucky because I know I get up every day and I have that ability to support people and to make that difference, and to my team say take over the world. I don't quite want to do that. I'm not Pinky in the Brain, if anyone remembers that cartoon series, but I definitely want to help as many people as I possibly can, and to know that we can do that is incredible.
I mean, this is kind of my next question, because one of the most famous people that talks about this is Simon Sinek. He says everyone should find their why, their purpose, their reason for doing what they do. And I was going to ask you what's your why, but you've kind of already answered that. But when do you think was the point that you found it?
You know what? Only recently. So, although I've had this company since 2020. So I started my training for my coaching qualifications in 2021, but I actually launched officially 2023. And I think to start with, I was doing it because I enjoyed it. I knew I wanted to make a difference, but it was very much I had to work on my mindset and my confidence level. And it was only when I really accepted that actually little old Zoe on a little Welsh mountain, a little house, can actually make a difference and is making a difference. And people are actually actively coming to find me to ask me for my advice, or to ask to work with me. And I went, oh my days, I'm actually making this difference. And it was like that light switch moment of this is real, or surreal, technically, is the words I actually used. It's incredible what I'm doing. It's been what my team are doing. Actually, do you know what? If I've made this much difference, let's go for it. And it was literally like a light switch of, okay, I've acknowledged this now. This is fantastic. This is working. It is wanted. It is needed, incredibly needed. Let's just go. And since that light switch happened, which is literally only June of this year, it's just gone absolutely off the charts. It's amazing. It's incredible, and it's amazing, but it is so surreal at the same time.
And you also said to me last time that you've actually been nominated for a very important award as well.
I have, yeah.
What is that?
So we have been nominated and shortlisted. So we are one of the final six, for the British Dyslexia Association awards evening. And the award category is for the Most Inclusive Workplace Award, which, yeah, I wasn't even aware I'd been nominated. So to have that email come through, A, I nearly fell off my chair, but B, it was, yeah, what we're doing is right. What I'm doing is right. What I've created is right. It's working and it's being acknowledged. And again, that boosts the confidence, absolutely. But it also gives us more. And I always say us because I work with some incredible people in my team, and I will never take the spotlight from them. It's very much a team effort, whatever yes, it's my company, but as a team, we do everything as a team. And what we do is incredible. It makes us, it proves to us actually what we're doing is right, and it's being acknowledged by external people, which is, to use the word surreal again, it is surreal because people don't know about us. People don't know my name, they don't know my company's name, but they really do. And that's really, really exciting.
It really is. And I wish you the absolute best of luck. I think
Thank
I mean, it's an
you.
important award anyway. Um,
Absolutely.
but the fact that you've managed to achieve that after such a short space of time as
Yeah.
well just shows that you're clearly making a very big impact already. Obviously, I discovered it after the fact, but it was another reason why I thought it was important to get you on here. I thought, actually, if you're making that much of a difference this quickly, then you are absolutely the right person to speak on this topic. I've had people work for me over the years with a whole range of disabilities. So there was like a deaf staff member, I've had people with neurodiversities, I've had people with genetic disorders, and
Yeah.
so on. There's all sorts of people. I hope that I've always managed to make everyone feel included no matter who they are, but I'm curious to know your opinion on how we're doing generally with disability inclusion, not just in the workplace, but life itself.
That's a very broad question. I think it's very difficult to answer specifically. I think we are definitely making a difference. We are definitely going forward, and that is really, really good. I think the issue that we have is that, yes, we have all this fairly new legislation that has been brought in. However, it is still very easy for employers, for example, to find loopholes around it. So, yes, it's brilliant to have the legal protection, but it doesn't actually offer as much protection as it should do. I was speaking to somebody yesterday who applied for agency work, and it was very much a case of yes, 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 yes. And then when they actually went into the agency for interview, everything that had been said about was, oh no, actually, no, we don't think you're a right fit. It was very much, yes, they were brilliant up until they physically saw that they had a disability. And then after a couple of sentences of this person saying, right, well, I need this reason of adoption, this reason of adoption, which is completely okay to ask for and absolutely should be. It was almost like the lights went off and nobody was interested anymore. So I think there is still a lot of work to be done. I think that also at the moment there is an awful lot of awareness about neurodiversity, which is amazing and definitely needs to happen, needs to be spoken about an awful lot more. At the same time, what I'm also finding is that what we do is from a society point of view is we hyper focus on one particular area of disability. So for example, at this moment it's neurodiversity. But what that then means is that all the other forms of disability, whether that is visual impairment, hearing impairment, physical disability, speech delays, anything along those lines, then get forgotten about and they become less important in society's eyes because that's not where the focus is. So I think it's very much a case of we still have a lot of work to do. We have to find that balance. But at the same time, if you are actively trying to do anything within your life or within your business that is inclusive, then that should be celebrated. That is the mindset that needs to be, championed. That the fact that you want to do is brilliant. The fact that you are willing to take, those extra steps, it's fantastic. I think it's very much a case of even if, you have someone come into your business and you make a mistake and you aren't as accessible as you should be because maybe you don't understand that person's diagnosis. That's okay because we are all human. We are not, medical encyclopedias. We're business owners. We're leaders. We're coaches. We're mentors. But we're whoever we are. So we don't say no. We don't need to know everyone's medical, diagnosis down to the letter. But as long as we own it and acknowledge it and go, actually, do you know what? I'm really sorry. That wasn't great. Let's be better. Then that's all that anybody could ask for. So I think yes, there's definitely work to be done, but we've definitely come a long way. And as long as we keep trying and keep, motivating ourselves to keep pushing forward and knowing that disability it shouldn't be a tick box exercise. I know I've had some people that are very much afraid to tick that box on an application form of, do you have a disability? Because they're like, brilliant, guarantees me an interview, but actually it probably doesn't guarantee me a job. And that's really sad. So I think if we can try and pull away from that mindset of going, I'm not going to tell you about my disability because I might not get that job, for example, and actually go, yes, I do have that disability. Yes, I am going to announce it because actually, do you know what? It makes me work harder. It makes me want to prove myself more. It gives me more of a drive because of the stigma, the stereotypes. So therefore, actually, we become a much better employee or, a much more driven business owner because we have that additional barrier that we have to overcome. So we've come a long way, but we definitely still have more work to do.
I mean, I know somebody who had an interview recently while she was filling out the application. The box came up about whether she wanted a guaranteed interview because of her disability. She didn't tick it. She said, no, I want to get it on my own merit. she
Yeah.
got the interview. And prior to the interview, she'd asked for the first time in the, I think it's about 16 years since she was diagnosed, for the very first time, she was asking for adjustments
Yeah.
for what she needs. So I think, part of that long way to go as well, isn't it? Is just constantly reinstalling that confidence in people
Absolutely.
with disabilities or diversities in some way, and just sort of saying, you need to ask for these things, because it's not just about obviously awareness for the person that you're asking. It's also your personal confidence to say, you know what, I need this. This is
Absolutely.
this is what helps me work at optimum level. This is
Yeah.
how I can perform best for you.
Yeah. It should be, it should be a thing to be seen as a positive, because if they have that reasonable adjustment put in place, then they're going to grow and shine in your business or in their business so much more than if they didn't have that reasonable adjustment. So it should never be seen as a negative. And it's just that flipping that mindset into, yeah, we're going to give that to you because we know you're going to be a valuable member of our team, of our company.
I wonder if there's a difference perhaps in the way that we treat physical disabilities versus things like neurodiversity. I mean, I've certainly found myself doing it in the past. Like I said, I had a deaf member of staff once, and he made it clear, you need to look at me.
Yeah.
I can lip read. You just need to look at me and make sure you speak clearly. He
Yeah.
said, don't speak loudly. There's no need to shout. I can't hear you. Which I loved about him. He had a great
Yeah.
sense of humor. But that was an easy adjustment to make. Every time I wanted his attention, I just tapped him on the shoulder so he was looking at me, and then I would just speak directly to him. And he never had a problem understanding what I was
Yeah.
trying to tell him or anything like that. And if it, on the rare occasion that he did, he would say, "Oh, can you just say that again?" So that was very easy. But with things like, for example, autism,
Yeah.
do we necessarily have that same willingness to learn and do whatever that person needs, no matter how simple or complicated it may be?
I think that's a really good question. I think that neurodiversity as a whole is a really broad umbrella because you have everything from autism, you have ADHD, you have AU ADHD, you have even dyslexia comes under the neurodivergent umbrella, which a lot of people don't realize, because dyslexia isn't just a case of issues with letters. It can also cause, brain fog, memory issues, it's the executive function. So I think to answer your question, it falls under the invisible illnesses category. And I think we definitely have a really long way to go on that. I think when it's, like you said, someone that's got a hearing impairment, it's really easy to understand what they need. Like you just verbalized that to me brilliantly. But for example, with autism, like you said, autism is so broad and varied and very person specific. What works for one person, I can guarantee you will not work for the next. It is very much a individual, dependent on how they work, on how they operate, whether they're different executive functioning levels, whether they have different triggers, whether they, do they have hyperfocus, do they have PDA? There's lots of different elements to them. I think there needs to be an awful lot more training on neurodiversity. I mean, like I said, before, we are doing so much better in terms of the awareness. But again, what I'm also finding is I'm working with some people that go, oh, well, I sat on this training and it said that all ADHD people, for example, were in this box. Well, I have ADHD and I'm not in that box. And actually, that really upset me because that's not how I work. That won't support me in the right way. And actually, it will trigger me. So I think it's being aware that, yes, there are brilliant coping mechanisms. There are brilliant ways of supporting people with neurodivergency. But you also have to be aware that it's not a, right, okay, tap you on the shoulder, you can look at me, right, you can hear me situation. It is a case of taking them as a guideline, but not as a script to work with, essentially. And I think it's very much something that we do have to work on through training, through confidence to actually try. And also it's, like you said, it's the mindset of, well, they look okay. So, they don't need X, Y, and Z. They're fine. They'll just get on with it. They have to because they look normal. Therefore, they can cope with whatever I give them. And that really isn't the case. I have invisible disabilities. I will put my hands up. I was the person that would park in Sainsbury's car park, put my blue badge up, and then I would instantaneously develop a limp. Now, at that point, I had my blue badge because of my asthma and my heart conditions. It wasn't because of my mobility issues. But I still had a limp because I had people watching me, because I had people come up to me and they would have a complete go at me for using a disabled bay, for having a blue badge. because I looked normal, because I looked like I was okay. And actually, I'm not, I am registered disabled, but it was that perception. I've changed that now. I actively, sometimes I have to give myself a good talking to, but I actually make sure that I don't do that limp unless I actually need to, because some days I do actually walk with a limp nowadays. So the irony is not lost on me. But I think it's very much a case of the concept of invisible illnesses and health conditions and the awareness of that. So I think it kind of falls under that bracket of there is a lot more education that needs to happen. There is a lot more training, and there's a lot more acceptance from society that needs to happen. Again, we've come an awful long way, but unfortunately, we are still nowhere near there from an acceptance level, especially when you are dealing with businesses, corporates, anyone that it's not the stereotypical norm to have to deal with, business owners or people in general that have health conditions, disabilities that can't maybe be seen, and therefore that are harder to understand.
Yeah, I agree. We have a young family member who has diabetes type 1,
Yeah,
and he is fortunate enough at the moment to be on a pump,
yeah,
but that pump is only there until he's 18. As it stands, he's only there till he's 18, and then he has to pay for it if he still wants it.
yeah,
The alternative is that he goes back to pen injections. Um, and when he was first diagnosed, he was like 4 years old, and
yeah,
the doctor specifically said, "This is lifelong, not life-changing."
yeah,
It's very easy to manage it. You just have to keep learning. You have to keep recognizing signs, and it will keep going like his entire life. Like the more
absolutely.
he pays attention to what is happening for him, the
Yeah,
easier it will be for him to become aware of when his blood sugars are too high, too low, the different types of foods or drinks that he's having that are causing those things. And they just said, it's very easily manageable. And actually, technology has come a long way even since he
yeah,
was diagnosed, just to be allow him to have a pump. But in a work environment, when he's a grown up, he's going to be faced with times where he needs to leave a meeting,
yes,
you know, or there'll be times where he's like, I need to eat lunch now.
yeah,
And I'm wondering, I know obviously it's a long way off, but what is it going to look like by the time he gets there? And again, it's that education, because there's still a lot of misconception around even simple conditions like that. A lot
yeah,
of the
absolutely.
misconceptions is that diabetes type 1 and 2 are the same, and they're not. you
No,
know they're very, very different. I saw one thing actually that really helped a lot of people, and it's come through a variety of different disabilities, particularly invisible disabilities. When I was back in full-time in education and training, a lot of my learners had things like dyslexia, ADHD, etc. When they'd got their diagnosis, they'd been for a full-on assessment. They got an entire report that
yes,
told them everything that they could possibly find out about them. So with dyslexia, for example, it told them about how organized they are, what they're likely to be,
yeah,
what they're likely to be doing with their time, all this kind of stuff. ADHD assessments came out about whether they did get things like hyperfocus and things like that.
yeah,
So those things are so valuable, aren't they? Because
oh,
it's not
absolutely.
just for the person.
No, because they can learn everything they need to learn, but then they can also go, right, here's basically a manual on me and how I'm affected by my health condition and what works best for me and what doesn't work for me. And there you go, have a read. And they don't even have to verbalize anything, because that's sometimes half the battle is going, oh yes, I've got this. And then you shut down, you go, no, I don't want to discuss it, or I can't discuss it, or you don't know how to discuss it. Whereas if they have that report, they can just go, there you go, there's everything you need to know. Any questions, come back to me. And it takes that pressure off them, because it is a really pressurized thing. You have to be really vulnerable when you're discussing your health. And that can be really, really scary and really intimidating, especially when it's with someone that you don't necessarily know or don't really know very well, or someone that maybe you either admire, because sometimes that can make it worse, or someone that actually maybe you think has that possibility to judge you or to actually change, your ability in work, for example. So, it could be your direct line manager, it could be HR, it could be anyone on those lines. You're like, oh, it's that sort of like big girl pants on. There's the information. Come back to me, sort of thing.
What are some of the common mistakes that leaders and leadership teams are making that is preventing disability inclusion?
I think it is very much a case of, again, it goes back to mindset. It's that closed mindset. It's the verbal discussions that they may have. So whether that's a case of them using the big words that they think sound correct and maybe aren't, and that therefore puts a barrier in place immediately, or it's the lack of understanding of someone's condition, or the lack of the desire to learn more about it. I think it's a case of there are amazing grants out there. Access to Work is one of them, which is an incredible grant. It is a nightmare at times, but the actual idea of it is incredible. And again, being aware of that, for example, and, being supportive of your employees to actually access it, because, I've supported people with access to work, multiple people. And what we've found is that we've applied for it, but then the employer hasn't been willing to engage. So some of the adaptations, for example, they haven't been able to get access to because the employer won't sign off on them. Therefore, it's detrimental to the person that I'm supporting and to their employee. And I do not understand the logic of that whatsoever, because if it's there to make their lives easier and better, it's going to make them a better employee. But again, because there is a financial element to it sometimes, that can be a preventative. So it's trying to think outside the box. It's trying to go, okay, well, maybe I have to spend a little bit of money, but actually what I'm going to get back could be like, 10 times, the worth essentially from that person. It is being willing to take the learnings, being willing to learn the correct terminology and not just guessing, even asking, just going, okay, do you know what? I don't know anything about, X. Can you tell me? It's about putting the supportive workplace environment in, so that, if anyone, so we'll use diabetes, for example, making sure there is someone in that building that is trained in diabetes. So if someone has, a hypo, for example, and they collapse, someone knows how to look after them. Someone knows that if, they have some of epilepsy in the building and they have a seizure, do not expect them just to get straight back up and back on their seat and crack back onto work. It isn't going to happen. And yet the amount of times that we've seen that where they've gone, oh, they're conscious again now, that's fine. No, they are still not going to be in any kind of state to process their surroundings. They're not going to be safe on those lines. So it's just a case of additional training, additional awareness, changing the mindset, being willing to maybe pay some money, being willing to get the correct training in, and just asking. I think asking is always the best thing that I can ever suggest to people, is ask the people that that have the additional barriers what they can do to support them to remove those barriers, because likely is they'll know the answer to that and they'll be able to tell you, but it may well be they won't have the confidence to ask. So if you can go, right, okay, open posture, open terminology, let's have a conversation, how can we support you best, let's make work better for you, more enjoyable for you, safer for you even, because sometimes it does come down to actual safety. Again, we had we had a lady, I will apologize to her if she ever listens to this podcast, that was sat on a desk at a computer, but it was a wheelie desk. Again, she had seizures. So what happened when she had a seizure? Chair went out, she hit the desk, really bad head injury, and she was on the floor. And that was because the employer wouldn't agree for access to work to put in a chair that was safe for her, that actually kept her safe, that meant they didn't wheel away from her and on those lines. So yeah, it's just being open-minded, essentially. That's probably the best place to start.
I can't help wondering the connection here, because one of the biggest things I help all of my coaching clients with at some stage or another is time management.
Yeah.
And I've actually got somebody coming on here to talk about time management. But I wonder what the connection is between that and, as you say, that openness and that willingness to learn about what people need when they've got a disability of some kind or a health condition of some kind. It's the usual, oh, I haven't got time for that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that won't be all of it, but I wonder how much that contributes to it.
I would definitely
just the
say
fact that leaders say, "Oh, I haven't got time."
Yeah, absolutely, because that's their auto response. Because to be fair to them, they probably actually don't have time. But sometimes when it's as important as this, you have to make the time. And I can guarantee you that I work with a lot of busy people, myself included. If we need to make the time, then we find a way to do so. And it's just a case of taking that pause to go, I haven't got the time, but actually I need to make it. And it's that conscious effort of going, right, what can I do in my diary, in my week, month, day, however it is, to find that time? And you can always do it. Even if it means that, you don't go out for, well, who goes out for lunch anymore? Who has the time to do that? But, you have a working lunch, for example, or, there's always ways and means. And it's just, being happy to to do that and to make that conscious effort.
The primary sort of advice that tends to come out at some point, or the path that they end up sort of going down when I help clients with this, is you have to understand you can only do so much in a day. So it's important for you to realize what is actually a priority.
Absolutely.
And if you need other people to help you figure out those priorities with the clear boundary that this is how much time I've got, then that's what you do. If somebody with a disability comes into your business with needs that you need to learn about, and funding you need to access, or whatever else it is that you need to do for that person, that's a priority, because without that they can't do the job. So something else has to be pushed on the back burner temporarily, and it shouldn't be the case that that leader is then working till 10 o'clock at night to make up the ground.
No, absolutely not, because that's, I think, to be fair, I think we've probably all been guilty of doing that, but that leads to burnout, and that just leads to their own health declining, and that's not beneficial to anybody, from themselves to their family to their business, their friends, to anybody. So no, it's a case of sticking to your boundaries, sticking to your time limitations that you have, and actually, like you said, it's prioritizing them, and that whether that's with someone helping you to do that, whether that's by employing a VA to manage their time effectively, whether that's using a project management system, whether that's literally just going, okay, here's Google Calendar, I'm going to time block and I do it in colors because I like colors. It's whichever way it works for you, but don't go outside of those hours. And also what you have to remember is that if you have a health condition, then there's the spoon theory. So I'll let anybody who wants to go off and Google it, find out about it. Some people like it, some people don't, but I find it really useful. If you say you only have X amount of spoons in a day, you've got to remember that you have to not run out of spoons, because if you do, you're borrowing from the other day, from the day ahead, and then that makes that day even harder. So sometimes you have to, again, accommodate how many spoons that person has, and also you as an individual, because we all only have a certain amount of energy, whether we have a health condition or not. We all have a capacity that, when we go past it, it's not good. So we have to be mindful of that, and making sure that we link in with everyone's spoons, essentially, and making sure that we don't end up having to borrow from the next day, or using too many on activity that actually we don't need to be doing that day. And again, it's just about prioritizing
and realizing as well, like, if I have 10 spoons, that doesn't mean that everybody else has 10 spoons.
No, exactly. It's very much like it's about the neurodiversity side of things. It's very much person specific. So again, if you Google it, they'll give an example of, I think I've seen 7 spoons, I've seen 10 spoons. So I think it does change depending on what article you read. But again, take that with a pinch of salt. It's to give you the overall idea. It's not, well, that means that everyone has got X amount of spoons. It's very much a case of person specific on that, but it is quite a good analogy to actually make you think how much effort things take in a day, especially if you have an autoimmune condition, for example, you go into a flare, or if you have fibromyalgia, you will use more spoons when you're flaring or unwell than you would on a normal day. And again, it's taking that into account as well.
When I talk about the 9 protected characteristics under the Equality Act, because obviously inclusion isn't just limited to disability, there are many other things that it has to include. But when I talk about those 9 protected characteristics, I say that there's 5 permanent characteristics that apply to everybody.
Yep.
And then there's 4 what I call circumstantial ones. I don't know if there's a better word for that, but essentially, is that good?
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, okay. So 4 circumstantial ones. They either happen to you or around you in life, or they don't. And it's as simple as that. And disability is one of those.
Yes.
But if it's going to happen to you, there's a whole host of ways it could happen. So you could be born with something, or it could be something that happens to you later in life. It could be temporary, it could be permanent, it could be the result of an accident, it could affect you a little or a lot. Yeah. There's a whole range of ways that disabilities can show up for someone. And you've obviously listed some of the things that you deal with on a daily basis. Some of those, I'm assuming, have been there all along. Yes. And other things have come later in life. So in some ways, you've kind of got both sides of the coin. So when you, for example, you left nursing because of your health.
Yeah.
You've also closed a business because of your health.
Yeah.
How did that shift your perspective? Because you've got that kind of 2 sides of the coin. Did it shift your perspective in any way?
I think I've always, and even when I was younger, I remember people telling me this, I've always had a mindset of there is always someone that has it worse than you, and therefore take things for, never take things for granted, take advantage of everything you can possibly do. And I think, yes, there are, really, really, sad things like closing my business, for example. Did I have to do that if I had the correct support? Absolutely not. But I didn't know the correct support was out there. But I think it is very easy to become bitter about your health conditions and to go into a very negative mind frame of, well, I've got this disorder, disease, label, barrier, whatever it is that you want to call it. We'll use the negative words because we're in a negative frame of mind right this second. That means I can't do X, Y, and Z. If I listened to that, I would have never gone into nursing. I would never have had my children. I would never have had 2 degrees. I would never have done anything in my life, because I won't do that, because I won't accept that negative mindset. You tell me I can't, just watch me, and I absolutely will, and I will move heaven and earth, probably because I'm stubborn, but I'll move heaven and earth to prove a point, and that actually I can do that. And that, yes, okay, I have to be very aware that as I've got older, my health has changed, not in a good way, but that's fine because I adapt to it, and I'm aware of, my good days, I'm aware of my bad days. I'm aware that, for example, I have my summit coming up this month, which takes the whole weekend. I'm aware that the couple of days after, no, that's not lie, the whole week after that, I am not going to be good for much. And I'm aware of that. So therefore, I have changed my calendar so that I only work a reduced amount of hours in that week to give my body and my brain time to recover from the summit, from the event that I'm running. So again, it's learning the coping mechanisms to be able to function to the best of your ability, and knowing that just because you have, asthma, for example, as a child, doesn't mean you'll have the same type of asthma as an adult. When I was younger, for example, my asthma was very much a case of, okay, cough, cold, inhalers, you'll be fine, sort of thing. Actually, as I've got older, my asthma has got worse. I would be in intensive care, high dependency, literally every 3 months, you could time it. And now it has changed again. So I'm touch wood, and I'm touching wood. It's not that bad. But again, it's being mindful that could still happen at any point. And it's just, if I didn't do things because, or just in case, yes, you still have to be sensible. Yes, you can't go out and do really, really unrecommended things, and I would never suggest to do that. But don't let your health be a limitation to you. Don't, put your own limitations on yourself because you have a health condition. There are always ways around things. And like I said before, it may be a wonky road. Hey, I live in a Welsh valley. All roads are wonky. That's absolutely fine. We like wonky roads. If there's a few potholes, again, they can be navigated too. So yeah, don't put limitations on yourself. Set your goals, set your dreams, and then find the way that works for you.
Absolutely. And I'm kind of a firm believer actually that we all have a wonky road. Like
Absolutely.
even if we're what's considered normal,
Yeah.
we all have a wonky road. We all have this weird, wonderful,
We do.
twisty-turny path with 10 ton of potholes in it, but
Yeah.
it's just gonna get us wherever we're going. But yeah, so I don't really believe in anything normal, to be honest.
Normal's overrated.
Yeah,
Absolutely
I just sort
overrated.
of
What
think
is normal?
what is normal? I don't know a single person in my life that I would class as normal. They're unique.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if anybody asked you what is normal, to be honest, I think anybody would really struggle with to answer that. And I think it's something that gets flung around, it's that word normal. And I think it's, oh, well, you're abnormal, you're normal, or this is the normal thing to do for this situation. But actually, if you were to go, okay, well, what is normal to, it is so person specific that nobody will either give the same answer twice or they won't be able to answer. I think if anyone said to me, what is normal? I'll go, and I probably go, not me, but I'm normal to me, if that makes sense. It's a really hard one to answer. And I think that's, oh, do you know what? I might actually put that on my group later. I think I like that question. I've just inspired myself.
There you go then. I'm giving you material.
You are.
There really isn't any such thing as normal. I think that was one of the conversations that really bugged me after COVID,
Yes.
because everything was just like, let's go back to normal. And I couldn't help thinking, in no sense of the word, whether you're dealing with, disabled employees that have now been thriving a bit because they're working at home,
Yeah.
or whether you're talking about, tech issues, or whether you're talking about, remote versus hybrid versus full-time
Yep.
in the office working, whatever you're talking about, like no two companies would define normal
No,
the same.
absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I think with COVID especially, everyone's and it's that saying that still grates, but it's that new normal. No one's new normal, if you like, will be the same. And everyone's affected so differently by COVID. I still speak to people now that, state that they never had COVID, that they've never had it. It's, they were lucky to not have it. I deal with people that have got, severe long COVID. My partner is one of those. So his life is completely changed. And then, you have the whole people that don't necessarily believe in COVID, and that's a whole different conversation. But I think there was never a normal to start with. There was a stereotype of expectations, but I don't think anyone could ever go back to how that was, because everyone's life has been changed so much by this one, horrendous experience.
And tech has really shot forward in that time as well.
It had to.
It had to. The things that were, limited availability or just on the cusp of, being something but kind of got put on a shelf, all those
Yeah.
things just came firmly off
They
the
got
shelf.
dusted off.
Yeah. So obviously that's benefited a lot of disabled people massively, because now they've got all this technology around them that's widely available, that every office uses,
Yeah.
that allows them to do things like work from home if that's what they need, or allows them to do, virtual meetings instead of having to
Yes.
travel, or, scheduling apps and all this sort of stuff to manage your time, like whatever it is that person needs. Like all of this stuff is now widely available. And it's frustrating to me, I suppose, that we haven't necessarily continued to embrace it because it's no longer needed.
Yes.
It's
Whereas
not.
actually it is.
Yeah. And it's like, it is. Yeah, it absolutely is needed. What do you think we could achieve if we all worked together on disability inclusion?
Anything is possible if we all actually work together. I think the world would be a nicer place, but that probably sounds a little bit cliche, but I think it is true. I think if we all work together to help each other, to support each other, to remove the barriers that people face, then literally, to quote a catchphrase, the world is their oyster, is our oyster, because we literally would be able to do anything as a team. There would be no limitations. And what an incredible idea that would be, to know that you could go into work, you could start a business, you could do anything that you wanted to. And because the support structure from society is there is no limitations. How incredible would that be? How surreal, how just warm, fuzzy Welsh cwtch feeling would that be?
Oh my goodness, a warm fuzzy Welsh cooked feeling. I love that. That's brilliant. Oh.
Up in 2015, I was English through and through. And now it's very much a case of I sound very, very Welsh. It's only if I'm extremely tired, or if you catch me, without coffee first thing in the morning, that maybe my Somerset Bristolian twangs will come out. But generically, everyone's like, you sound so Welsh. So I'm like, it's brilliant, isn't it? I fit in brilliantly on rugby day because nobody knows that I'm English. It's fab.
They think you're on the right side, the red side.
Exactly.
What is your definition of success?
My definition of success is happiness and contentment. It is knowing that, my bills are paid, there's food on the table, and I can spend time with my family, and that actually the world is a better place because of things that I've done or my team have done. Success is something that is measurable to me from a personal level. It is not from a monetary level. Ask any of my team, I am the first person to go, right, this person needs help. They can't afford it. I'll pay for it. I'm the first person to do that. As a business owner, don't do that. But from an ethical, moral point of view, if someone needs help, I will always go above and beyond to help them. So money isn't important to me. It's very much a case of knowing that I can grow up, my kids can grow up, and I can see them smile, and I can give them the experiences, and I can spend time with them, and just know that actually I can do things that don't limit my health either, that I don't have to work stupid amount of hours. I don't put myself into burnout. Yes, at the moment, do I still do that? Yes, because I'm stubborn and because I'm so passionate that I still want to try and help as many people as I can. But I'm learning, I'm getting there, I'm starting to take my own advice. But yeah, success is very much a case of just living the life that I would like to live with my family, and not having to worry, not having to stress, and just go, do you know what? It may be running outside, but inside it's sunny and it's happy.
Perfect. I love that. Brilliant. You support business owners with health conditions, disabilities, and neurodiversity to grow their business, and you support a range of teams and people to grow their understanding of disability inclusion and the steps they can take to achieve this better. If somebody's listening to this and thinks you're the person to help them, where can they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. So just search Zoe Plumley and I will ping up. I think I'm the only one on there. But they can also find me on Facebook and on Instagram. So if you type in LNL VA services or LNL coaching services, I will ping up there. We have the websites. So again, www.lnlvaservices.co.uk. Same for the coaching, but it's coaching services, not VA. And again, if you look into Facebook and type in LNL business inclusion, that is my free Facebook community for all business owners that have got additional barriers for us to be able to cheerlead you on, to support you when you're down, offer advice and guidance. And yeah, we just have a really nice, glittery pom-pom time in my community. I love it in there. It's amazing. It's full of amazing people.
It sounds like an amazing place, to be honest.
It is. I'm
really
biased.
good.
It is. Unicorns and all.
Well, all the links you just shared will be put in the description for this episode. The work you do is incredibly important. Disability is not the only category that needs more work to be more inclusive, but it's probably the largest. So voices like yours need to be heard so we can move the world forward and make it a better place for everyone. I do hope you've enjoyed being a guest on the podcast today.
I've loved it. Thank you so much for your time, Laura.
Oh, you're most welcome. It's been an insightful and empowering conversation. Thank you so much, Zoe.
You're more than welcome.
Until next time, everyone.